Hola muchachos y muchachas, hoy es martes el 8 de diciembre de 2020. Hoy tenemos para empezar, por favor, practice your Quizlet 3.2. Then watch the Tell Your Story on page 167, or as we know how to say, página 167 of your online textbook twice. That's what I do in my in-person class, right? So that we can practice listening and comprehending. Watch today's lesson, por favor. You're doing that obviously. And then your homework is cuántos años tiene. So today we're learning about possessive. Where did it go? Oh, I see. Possessive adjectives. So let me zoom in a little bit for us. This is on página 169. Our goal is to learn to express possession, then practice using possessive adjectives to talk about family members and to give dates. So, English grammar connection, possessive adjectives tell you who owns something or describe a relationship between people or things. We already kind of used some of these in our writing, so it should look somewhat familiar. The forms of the possessive adjectives do not change in English, but they do change in Spanish. So for example, I would say, this is my cousin, these are my cousins. Okay, so notice how my stays the same for singular or plural depending on who I'm talking about, but in Spanish that's not the same. I would say, ellos son mis primos. If I'm just talking about one guy, I would say, él es mi primo. So here's a huge thing to remember is you need to change your adjective based on what it is describing, okay? Not whose it is. So I'll try to hash that out a little bit in a second, but let's look at them. Spanish, the possessive adjectives agree in number with the nouns they describe, okay? So we have me for my, tu for your. Now, you might say, hey, we've already learned tu, right? Yes. Tu with an accent means you. So if I say tu bebes agua, you drink water, that would have an accented you. However, if I'm saying tu as in your, like tu libro es grande, that has no accent. So your, no accent, you, accent. Here's a new one for us, su. Su can mean your formal, her, his, or its. So just think of your verb charts, right? Your you formal usted form goes with he, she, or it. Then this is your yo form, this is your tu form. This is your nosotros form, right? Our will be nuestro or nuestra. Vuestro or vuestra will be your familiar, right? In Spain. Sorry, Miani. Su, again, is going to be you all in Latin America or formal in Spain, as well as there. So this is still our regular verb charts, okay? Just think this is first person, this is second person, and this is third person, and these match our third person. If we need to make, if the nouns they are describing are plural, then we're going to add an S, and that's simply it. Mis, tus, sus, nuestros, vuestros, sus. Example, es mi tía, she is my aunt. Son mis tías, they are my aunts. You might have noticed that here's a little apostrophe A on the nuestro and vuestro. It says nuestro y vuestro must also agree in gender with the nouns they describe. The other ones don't, it doesn't matter, okay? So for example, nuestra abuela tiene 70 años, singular and feminine. Nuestros abuelos viven in San Francisco. It's masculine and plural. Notice how that's agreeing. The only time that we have to worry about matching in these 6 instances are singular or plural, right? We don't have to worry about gender. Only nuestro and vuestro. So one book activity with these today. Let's look at las familias. Marisol habla de las familias y sus animales. Escoge el adjetivo posesivo correcto, okay? So you're choosing escoge is choose, the possessive adjective correct. So for example, nosotros tenemos 3 primas. Is it nuestros or nuestras primas son altas? So one thing to think through is we're talking about nosotros. However, we need to look at who we are describing, okay? And who we are describing right here is the primas. So we need to match nuestras with primas. See how those match together? So even though nosotros, it looks like there's at least one male in the we that we're talking about, since we're describing only females, we're matching it with that. Let's look at the second one. Ustedes tienen un abuelo. Su or nuestro cumpleaños es el 2 de abril. So ustedes, we're talking to you all. You all have a grandfather. So I would not say our birthday, right? Because we're probably not all quadruplets. I would say his birthday is, right? Su cumpleaños, his birthday. Now you might say, well, don't we need to match it with cumpleaños because it ends in an S? I like what you're thinking, okay? But birthday is just really, honestly, it's a singular noun, right? Your birthday is singular. It's one day. Cumpleaños. That's kind of a tricky word. Mi familia y yo tenemos una gata vieja. Remember what vieja means? It means old. So we have an old cat who's a female, una gata. Nuestra or su gata is Ruby. Well, we're talking about mi familia y yo. So we're talking about our cat, nuestra. 3 more, chicos. Yo tengo 2 hermanos mayores. Okay, 2 older brothers. Mi or mis hermanos son estudiosos. So I'm talking about myself, yo tengo. But we have to make our possessive adjective match who we're talking about, right? The noun that it's describing. So my brothers. So mis hermanos. Mis abuelos tienen un perro, a dog. Su or mi perro es perezoso. We're talking about their dog, right? Not my dog. Mis abuelos tienen un perro. So it'd be su perro es perezoso. Again, we're matching it in singularity. It's just one dog, so it's their dog, su perro. If they had multiple dogs, then we would say sus perros, right? Sus perros. Forgot to roll the R on the last one. Okay, feliz cumpleaños. Hoy tienes 15 años. Note how I'm talking to tú. Tienes. So you would say es tu cumpleaños. It is your birthday. Okay, awesome. Quickly, before we do our next activity, I thought this was interesting, so we'll just read this really quick. Las elecciones en Puerto Rico. So, we've talked about earlier in this class that Puerto Rico is a commonwealth in the United States. Puerto Ricans have U.S. citizenship, and those living on the mainland can vote in presidential elections. On the island, Puerto Ricans vote for their governor and local legislator. Voter turnout is high, often over 80%. Puerto Rico has 3 main political parties. Now, this is the part I really thought was interesting. First one, Partido Popular Democrático, favors the current political status. The Partido Nuevo Progresista wants Puerto Rico to become the 51st state of the United States. And the Partido Independentista Puertorriqueño supports independence from the U.S. So totally different sides, which I guess I shouldn't be surprised, right? Let's look at the political climate in the United States today, right? Totally opposite sides of things. But some people say, yeah, let's be the 51st state of the United States. Some people say, let's, have nothing to do with them. All right. So last activity for today, before I turn you loose to do your homework, is Translation Station. Bienvenidos, chicos. So here are some activities. First, go ahead and feel free to pause the video. Match the possessive adjectives to its English equivalent. Go ahead and try to do that mentally. Again, Pear Deck, I'm using that for my in-person students. You guys can just mentally draw the lines. So pause the video until you get that done. Okay, so me goes with my. Su is your formal, right? If I'm talking to usted, I could say, me gusta su abrigo. I like your jacket. His, her, its is also su. There is also su. Okay, so su can go with all three of these things if the your is formal. Tu, that's going to be your informal, right? Vuestro, that's your, right? Plural your, informal in Spain. And nuestro, that's going to be our. Okay? Remember, not every word can be translated directly. For example, telling the age of someone. So remember from a few days ago, if I say, ¿Cuántos años tienes? I'm just asking you, how many years do you have? Really, we're asking, how old are you? Okay, so you can't necessarily, so if you want to say, I am 15 years old, you wouldn't say, yo soy 15 años. You would say, tengo 15 años, okay? Also, cuidado, caution. Possessive adjectives match in number, singular plural, with the nouns they describe. So we just went over that, right? Example, my cat's 4 years old. Mi gato tiene 4 años. My cats are 4 years old. Mis gatos tienen 4 años. So notice how that matches. So how would I say my brother's 15 years old? My brother's 15 years old. Gonna give you a second to think about it. It'd be mi hermano tiene, right, to match the L form, tiene 15 años. Mi hermano tiene 15 años. What about this one? My aunt is 53 years old. Pause the video until you can figure it out. Mi tía tiene 53 años. Your grandmother or grandma is 81 years old. How would I say that in Spanish? Tu abuela tiene 81 años. Actually, I would say tu abuela tiene 80. Hold on.